by saying Bismillah before the meal. If said in a hollow and faithless manner, Bismillah will have no effect. If said with faith and passion, however, Bismillah is claimed to purify the occult properties of their food, and even entire rooms for that matter. There are also types of magic that's holy and ordained. Take the exorcisms performed by Catholic and Islamic priests, for instance. Like magicians, these priests would separate a seducing spirit from its human host by invoking the many names of God aloud, and even claiming God's authority. And, like a magician, these priests can succeed in freeing someone from demonic possession. This is nothing but magic. Uttering the names of God aloud does no more than produce a series of sound waves, which would affect the demon no more or less than any other pattern of sound waves. The sound waves produced by Bismillah should not be any more capable of cleaning occult properties or driving away evil spirits than saying purple spider monkey. Don't let this mere illustration of holy water, however, bring you to the conclusion that the hidden essence that lay in all things is no more than a one-dimensional scale, ranging from holy to evil. Just like an object has multiple physical properties simultaneously, the same object also has multiple occult properties simultaneously. The physical properties of an object are things like width, height, depth, weight, color, shape, etc. Physical objects have all of these properties at once. A large part of magic is devoted to two types of hidden properties. The first property is the elements, and there are 5: spirit, air, water, fire, and earth. The second major type of hidden property is the planets, and there are 7: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The 5 elements of the magicians were allegedly derived from the 4 elements the Greeks claimed all things were made from. After more research, especially into Greek philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle, who I suspect had occult knowledge, I am more convinced that the reverse is true, and that the Greeks based their belief of the 4 elements, air, water, earth, and fire, on the magician's 5 elements. The term, the elements, remains with us to this day. To be exposed to the elements is to be left outside and exposed to rain, which is water, dirt, which is earth, air, which is air, and sunlight, which is fire. Magicians also make references to other properties. Some truly are as generic as positive and negative, while other hidden properties may be a living being, like a spirit. As stated previously, a spirit can be bound to an object. The nature of these hidden properties, both elemental and planetary, is measured in personality, rather than the mathematically sound inches and pounds that physical properties are measured by. Each of the elements and planets has correspondences to almost everything imaginable. Everything from body parts to odors to points on the compass to angels. Listening to magicians explain why that odor or that stone or that type of tree corresponds to a particular planet certainly makes for some comedy. So not only can someone insert the influence of, say, Jupiter into an object, but the physical makeup of the object makes it inclined towards a particular planetary or elemental influence. In this case, one would choose objects whose physical properties lent themselves to Jupiter. Many people believe that things like rabbit's feet have a natural occult essence of luck. I have not heard an occultist comment on this, but it's no more absurd than spitting into a frog's mouth. The metal copper, for instance, is inclined to the influence of Venus. Therefore, copper is a venereal metal. Venereal, Venus, the goddess of lust and sex, go figure. But planetary or spiritual properties aren't the only hidden properties an object or given space has. There are also threads that permanently bind every material particle to every other particle that it has ever come in contact with. Imagine for a moment that every time you touch an object, small threads remain that tie your hand to that object forever. The more times you touch that object, the more threads between you and it are created. The average person would therefore have many residual threads between them and the fabrics in their clothes and furniture. but also fluids or solids that pass through or came from your body would naturally have many lingering threads. Because of the length of time they were in your body and sheer surface area contact, the things like sweat, blood, semen, hair, milk, or skin would likely contain more lingering threads than urine or feces. This web that binds all things, the Force from Star Wars, goes by many names: the Akasha, Indra's web, the web of word, the web of life, and the Force. Essentially, everything you've ever touched or excreted is still touching you. Most of this material has decomposed into the earth, returned to the ocean, or rotting in a landfill. Naturally, a magician would find things like your clothes, hair, blood, and extremely personal items useful if he desired to target you, as it makes for an easy way for him to describe your whereabouts to a spirit. This web that binds all things makes it possible for objects and spaces to essentially record events, which brings us to the problem of ghosts. Ghosts are usually thought of as spirit beings who roam or haunt a given place. Some ghosts repeat the same actions over and over again, while other ghosts seem to interact with people and objects in our world. Some ghosts are comprised not of individuals, but as objects such as ghost ships and ghost trains. Other ghosts may be whole groups of people, such as American Civil War battles, where whole ghost armies are seen marching into battle. Some ghosts aren't objects at all, but noises, feelings, and odors that seem to come from a distant past. The most pervading theory regarding ghosts is that they are the souls of departed who weren't ready to quote-unquote move on. Consequently, with unfinished business in our world, they continue to roam the place where they perished. Attached to each, of course, is this traumatic, tearjerker story of how the person died and why they have unfinished business. This theory has been screamed and echoed from the hills by every spiritualist and self-proclaimed psychic out there. While I was researching the spirit world, I ignored these spiritualists and psychics. Even if they were indeed psychic, and even if they honestly and accurately relayed to me all they knew about the spirit world, they demonstrated no control. Their knowledge was limited to what information a spirit or environment would volunteer, a merely subjective relationship. But to see or hear something I can't, not being a psychic, implies that you only know of it, not about it. You know of its existence, not its nature. It's the difference between seeing a bolt of lightning and knowing how to harness it. The psychic remains subject to the danger posed by lightning because he cannot tell why it strikes or where it will fall next. He can only proclaim its existence or presence as a fact. These pint-sized mystics then create a whole system of superstitions to explain away the aspects of lightning they don't understand. The magician, on the other hand, demonstrated control. He knew how to work with the spirits, harness them, and how to stay safe from them. Also, the magician did not make the pitiful mistake of associating the spirit world with the afterlife of human beings in such an exclusive manner, unlike those mama's boys philosophers and old maid eccentrics. Bottom line, the magician didn't have to hope for a haunted house, he could make it haunted. He did not have to ask the spirit to leave, he could make it leave. Hence my decision. There are numerous holes in the theory that a tragic story, combined with unfinished business, leads to the creation of a ghost and the beginning of a haunting. The most glaring is the fact that not all ghosts are people, but, as suggested earlier, could be trains, ships, even odors. How did the train become a ghost? Did enough souls perish in the train to drag the train itself to the spirit world with them? Why did those Civil War soldiers bring their rifles, uniforms, and horse with them to the afterlife? Some hauntings don't include any speech at all, but instead noises, music, or odors that seem to rise from the past itself. Further, hospitals and busy intersections should be teeming with ghosts. Per square foot, both have seen more death than any haunted house ever did. or battlefield for that matter. All of us are familiar with the power of intention, whether consciously or unconsciously. Some people can be made upset by the mere mention of an undesired, yet extremely unlikely fate, as if the mere utterance of an event increases its chances. For example, a passenger on an airplane would get angry listening to another passenger muse and speculate over what would happen if we crashed. Sometimes, this response of anger is logical. You may be correct in painting a very likely outcome. Being swept up in mindless optimism, the angry party may accuse you of raining on their parade. Other times, the angry response one receives for such speculation is not rational. The outcome you predict is so unlikely it is unworthy of serious consideration. Anger towards this type of speculation may not stem from violation of the rational senses, but intuitive ones. People who don't like to be jinxed are usually these over-optimistic types who subconsciously know the power of intention. Further, to be optimistic is a point of view. Two fans of different football teams sitting together watching their two teams compete would perceive any speculation from the other as pessimism. Then there are, of course, perfectly logical concerns that some people will label pessimistic. But honestly, what good is optimism if the plan sucks? If the plan sucks, worry and pessimism may be the only thing that saves you from an undesired and perhaps quite likely fate. Despite all of this, the power of intention cannot be denied. Although our thoughtless airplane passenger did not actually intend for the plane to crash, subconsciously, we all grasped the power of the wish. It is upon these wishes that the magician constructs his reality. The things a magician paints with his mind become real and visible by all the beings in the land of thoughts and dreams. A magician doesn't merely hold a wand. He uses it to project energy he visualizes, and when he paints invisible pentagrams in the air, the beings in the other world can see these symbols and are further subject to their function. Wishes, however, isn't the only variable a magician must consider. A principle most magicians live by is never swim upstream, never go against the wind. Magicians believe that rays are arriving to Earth or the material universe from the stars, and these rays contain within them certain trends. These rays make individual people and whole societies predisposed to certain behaviors. Like tides on an ocean, these behavioral trends wax and wane and can be predicted. At times when the rays of the heavens make people aggressive, this is the time when the magician seeks to cause strife and war. When the rays from the stars suggest a time of peace, the magician seeks to induce favors and garner friendships. Mostly, magicians concern themselves with the celestial effects brought on by the 7 magical planets. Each of these planets produce certain effects that rise and fall as the days and months go by. The magician always flows with the trends, but these trends are no mere machinations of popular culture, but celestial trends. Astrology, as it is popularly known today, is the use of heavenly bodies to track current and future trends. Astrology is based on the principle that the location of certain heavenly bodies helps indicate a person's or society's behavior, and therefore their fate. Unbeknownst to most of its believers, astrology was originally exclusively used by magicians in order to track when certain spells and rituals are to be performed. Most people use astrology to help dictate their day-to-day actions, and even though subtle astrological forces do play a part in determining a behavioral trend, it is not an art worthy of guiding one's life. The practitioner of astrology is likely to miss good opportunities or seize upon bad opportunities on account of their daily astrological horoscope. Too subtle and ordained. Take the exorcisms performed by Catholic and Islamic priests, for instance. Like magicians, these priests would separate a seducing spirit from its human host by invoking the many names of God aloud, and even claiming God's authority. And, like a magician, these priests can succeed in freeing someone from demonic possession by saying Bismillah before the meal. If said in a hollow and faithless manner, Bismillah will have no effect. If said with faith and passion, however, Bismillah is claimed to purify the occult properties of their food, and even entire rooms for that matter. There are also types of magic that's holy properties simultaneously. The physical properties of an object are things like width, height, depth, weight, color, shape, etc. Physical objects have all of these properties at once. A large part of magic is devoted to two types of hidden properties. The fashion. This is nothing but magic. Uttering the names of God aloud does no more than produce a series of sound waves, which would affect the demon no more or less than any other pattern of sound waves. The sound waves produced by Bismillah should not be any more capable of cleaning occult properties or driving away evil spirits than saying purple spider monkey. Don't let this mere illustration of holy water, however, bring you to the conclusion that the hidden essence that lay in all things is no more than a one-dimensional scale, ranging from holy to evil. Just like an object has multiple physical properties simultaneously, the same object also has multiple occult